Hello and welcome to the Pocket-lint hands-on review with the LG G Flex. Now I've just been handed this phone today, so don't expect too much in the way of personal thought or review. What I want to do is show you the phone and explain the features and particularly what I've learned today and how I've experienced the handset so far. So here we have the G Flex presented here with a banana for scale and also a banana for curvature. You can see that in fact the G Flex is a fractionally less curvaceous device than this banana. But the phone itself is extremely nice. It is a very different approach and it will not appeal to everyone, that's for sure. I like it because it feels very natural next to your head. Now that's something something we've always struggled with smartphones. They always feel a little bit tombstoney and cold and uncomfortable, and that's not really the case here. This is a much more curved phone, obviously, so it's much more comfortable to use. That's a very minor part of it, but we are told that the way that the fact that it's so much closer to your face has a real impact on the sound quality. And in fact, you get an extra 3 decibels, apparently, of volume when you're speaking on the phone, which is handy. So it means that your calls will come over more clearly to those you're speaking to. What else? This is essentially an LG G2 built into a different case with a different screen. So hardware-wise, it's identical. So it is a very high-end device. The only major difference is the screen, which is a 720p model instead of the 1080p you find on the LG G2. Now, some people will find that distasteful and will not want to own a phone that is not full HD. I am not of the same mind. I've had a look at it. It's pretty clear, actually. I mean, and don't forget as well, it's worth remembering that the Note 2 was around this size and had a 720p screen, and actually that wasn't a big deal. Of course, we would rather have a 1080p screen, but this is a very new kind of device, and for now, we're prepared to accept that there will be some compromises, and that's a minor one, and we were also told by LG that has a positive effect on both battery life and processing speed, because obviously the processor is not tied up producing 1080p pictures, so therefore it can be a little bit more snappy. So LG actually tells us that they think this phone is a little bit quicker than the G2, which is interesting and something to bear in mind if you're a speed freak. Now, features many of the same LG tricks as we've seen before. You've got the double tap to unlock the screen. So you give it a double tap, it didn't work a couple of times there, but it's usually pretty reliable. You double tap the screen and then you're into the phone and you drag or you do a pin, unlock code, whichever you want. It's all the standard Android features. LG has, as always, thought very carefully about the user interface. So, for example, the arrows here, you see I've got them aligned on the right-hand side of the phone, but a simple drag moves them into the middle if you're using 2 hands, and a drag the other way moves to the other side. So it depends what hand you use mainly. Right or lefties will both have as much fun with that. It works either way. It's really very slick. Also, LG has, I think, smartened up its own user interface. It was quite confusing before, but they've sort of improved it a bit. I think it's a little bit more clear on the top here about what's going on exactly. But having said that, I think LG still does complicate things a little bit. For example, there are 2 config buttons here, and that can be confusing. I know it sounds ridiculous, but actually there are times when you think, why have I got these 2 config buttons? Which one goes where? So it's a small point, but it's one worth remembering. You can also use this phone with 2 things on the display at once. That's very clever. So what you do to get there, you press and hold the back button and you get this selection. So I've got a text message from my friend telling me where I need to be at what time, and I think I want to have Google Maps on the bottom so that I can search. So I'm able now to find where I'm going, but also to send and receive text messages at the same time. That could be really handy if you're in a car or whatever, you need to have access to that kind of stuff quickly, you know, when you've pulled over to keep safe or whatever, but it's a nice idea. And of course, a phone like this will be immensely powerful when you're in a car because there's a nice big screen. And also if you hold it horizontally, the orientation flips and you've got the text messages on one side and the maps on the other. Really nice feature. The buttons on the back, I mean, this remains contentious, doesn't it, really? Depending on your outlook, whether or not you think buttons on the back of a phone are a good idea or not. I really like this. When I'm on the phone, when I was using the G2, I found this was a very natural way of controlling the volume. I like the button to lock the phone now. I think it makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways, and it keeps the rest of the device completely clear of obstruction. The only place on this phone you have to put anything at all is the SIM tray, and that's located at the on the side, on the left-hand side of the device. I've just had to look and check for that. Interestingly as well, the unlock tray thing is really cool. It's a little tiny G. I'll show that to you in close-up because it's really cool and worth pointing out just how cool that is. So that just, as you know, I'm saying, just slides in and the SIM tray will come out. Aside from that, there's some interesting tech got into the battery. This is a bendable battery, which means that while it's all well and good being able to bend the phone itself, that's no good if you bend the battery and it breaks, destroying the phone. So the battery is bendable. It's quite a high capacity battery. LG also tells us that as a result of that lower, an OLED screen, which is naturally less power hungry than an LCD, and the processor considerations, this is a phone that could last 2 to 3 days. Obviously, we have not tested that, and we will be coming to that in due course, but it's interesting to think about a phone that maybe has more stamina, and that's something, certainly we think we'd be prepared to trade screen resolution for a phone that lasts us a little bit longer in terms of power. That's very important. Also, one of my favourite features from the LG G2 was the high quality audio. That is present here, so if you've got very high quality music, 9624 traditionally, you can play it using this on the headphones. We tested it on the G2 and it was fantastic. You give it a pair of good headphones and it's like nothing else you've ever heard. Really powerful stuff and well worth having, I would say. Aside from that, it's really just a normal phone. If you can get over the curvature and the fact that it's very, very big, there is nothing really to choose here. I mean, apart from, the power spec aside and the screen resolution particularly, this is a phone that's just a bigger version of the G2. And that's a really nice thing because if you want a slightly smaller phone, you've got the G2. If you want the bigger phone, then this is probably a really good option for you. But we think that far from being just a gimmick, we think that the curved display here and the curved handset is actually a really nice feature, and we're looking forward to getting to grips with it. We will have a full review for you in due course, but for now, that's the LG G Flex.